Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Hi, everybody. I'm Gigi.
And Fruit Loop.
Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right into this. We're not going to leave you hanging the whole time, but we've just come up with a little theory, and it's not proven. We're just throwing this out there as a possibility. So here we go. So on Tuesday around 4:40 p.m., everyone who had signed up for the notifications through VineLink got a message that Lori Vallow Daybell had been released from custody. And the jail quickly confirmed that she was not released and that the notification was a computer glitch. But you have some other information on that.
Yeah, so I go to a lot of different websites, Facebook groups to read up on the case and kind of see what everybody's saying. And on one, it was not a Facebook group, it was another website. I came across a post that made me very curious about some stuff. So I'm going to read a little bit of this post, and I'm not going to put the person their name who posted it out there just because I didn't get permission. But this is being floated around all over, so I feel comfortable sharing it. It says, based on several trusted sources, I think something's about to drop within a few days, and she will likely be transferred to a different jurisdiction with new charges. And in parentheses, she has Boise or a state facility. This person goes on to say, I will eat all the crows served if I'm wrong, but if I thought for 1 second that this was not true, I would not post it here or anywhere. So once we read that, last night we shared these texts back and forth, my brain got to working, and I didn't think much about it. So today we're getting ready for the podcast, and we start talking about this again. And so we pulled up the Madison County Jail VineLink to see her status. And what did we see?
So when we pulled that up, it was a little bit different than it has looked in the past.
A lot different.
So normally it has what on it?
Normally it'll have the name. And we looked up Chad's for reference. And I know that normally under Lori's name, it will have that her status, which is in custody, and then it will have Madison County as her location. But today, when we pulled up Lori's VineLink, it did not have that she was in custody there. It did not have in custody, and it did not have Madison County as her current location.
Yeah, it simply just has like case status open,
but we
the
looked
case number,
right. And we looked at Chad's for reference, and so when you pull up Chad's on VineLink, it has that he is in custody in Fremont County.
Yes.
So we went back to Lori's again to make sure we were opening all the little tabs that show status, and we did, and that is different since Tuesday.
Yes.
And excuse me. So it just got us thinking with what we read last night from this person. And I will say that the message board that we got this from is not one that allows pretty much just free talk. They don't allow the conversations to get out of hand. And so I tend to believe some things that come from this website because they have been in the past proven to be true in time. So after reading that, we got to talking, and we called a friend of ours who is an ex-investigator, police officer, and used to transport inmates between facilities. So I asked, let's say that somebody is in jail with charges, and it's likely that charges are going to be upgraded. Would it be possible for a facility to move a high-risk inmate to another facility a few days before those charges come down for the safety of the inmate? And she said yes, that sometimes that does happen, and it's not only for the inmate safety, it's also for the safety of the officers transporting her. I mean, she's not a liked person, probably the most hated mom in America. And so I thought that was interesting, and we have no insider information. This is just a post we saw on a place where a lot of facts have come out, and a lot of people have had inside information. So we just thought it was interesting. And the one thing that our friend said was that it would make a lot of sense if these were federal charges, because you have to go to a different facility.
Yeah. And the other thing to point out too is we Googled, we looked on VineLink's site. There was no announcement that there had been an error. And we looked, and we didn't see any evidence of anybody else getting a message, for somebody else. Because a lot of people use that.
Yeah, I mean, and it also, I think a lot of victims use that
service
to know if by chance somebody did make bail. So, yeah, like we haven't found anything where anybody other than Lori Vallow got that glitch, which pushed out that she had been released. So we'll see what happens. That's our big theory. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it. If charges are imminent and this person says they think within a few days. So we shall see. But we do want to say we are not claiming this to be true. It's just a few things sort of seemed suspicious to us. So we dove in today. And that's what we found, is that for some reason on the Vine link today, she is not listed as being in custody in Madison. And that is new.
Yeah. And the other thing we talked about was when she was flying back from Hawaii here, there were some things done that kind of hid, where they were flying into and from and all that.
Even down to the door they took her in, because I know after she was brought, because what happened, if you're new to the case, when they extradited her from Kauai back to Rexburg, people were trying to track her flights so they could get footage. And initially it was reported that they were going to fly into Boise and then make the 4.5-hour drive to Rexburg. But what happened was when they got to Boise, I believe the governor offered them the plane that is property of the state to get her to Rexburg quicker. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with security. You don't want somebody like her out on the open highway for 4.5 hours. People are crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then when they got to the jail, they had been told where they were going to bring Lori in. And it's one of those deals where you're going to get a shot of the van she's in. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a small little clip of her being transferred from that car into the facility. But I believe there was some misinformation. And I know at one point the media was a little bit perturbed with the public information officer or whoever was responsible for talking to the reporters about the location, because they felt they had been out there all day and had been lied to. So, but with high profile inmates, I guess there is a concern about safety. So if it did happen, I would think that would be the reason, but we'll see in a few days. If we're wrong, we're wrong. We're not professing this as just some big fact and we're, 100% convinced that's the case. It's just a little suspicious.
Yep. I totally agree.
What's tomorrow, Fruit Loop? Somebody's having a birthday.
Lori.
Oh.
And I think we're going to discuss a little bit. We've touched on it a little bit before about the jailhouse conditions, what it's like for her there.
I wonder if they're going to have a big cake and.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, and
your 3 meals a day and your peanut butter and jelly lunch. I don't think there's going to be cake.
No cake. It'll be interesting if anybody on the outside calls to wish her a happy birthday, because one thing we did learn is in the jail she's at, they essentially have access to tablets all day during free time where they can do video conferences with their family on the outside.
Yeah, she can call out as much as she wants on that, but to call in, you've got to be registered.
And also, we know that her and Chad were talking a couple hours at least every day. Every day. It was mentioned when he was in custody that that next day was the first day since all this happened they hadn't been in contact, because according to somebody, they were talking they had these conferences every day since she had been incarcerated.
Yes.
So they have access to all these iPads during the day. What else do they have at that jail?
I mean, it was kind of, it was like she kind of gets to roam and go where she wants. She can shower when she wants.
Yeah, that she's in general population, which we were sort of curious. We did learn that she is in a cell by herself.
Yeah, she doesn't have a cellmate.
But it sounds like, for the most part, she is free to roam and do, I guess, within reason, whatever they're allowed to do all day, unless there's any discipline issues, which we haven't heard of anything. And
what we heard before, there's about 20 possibly inmates in there. So that's not a lot of, it's going to be totally different in a bigger facility. So
right. And I'm actually really surprised that we haven't had somebody who has been released, because in county jails, you have people like Lori who have pretty big crimes that they're waiting for charges or more charges or whatever. But a lot of times in county jail, it gets to be kind of your lower level crimes. So none of these people are hardened in there, I would assume.
Yeah, not until they go, to where they're going to stay.
Right. But
once they're sentenced in their trial and everything.
I'm very surprised somebody hasn't come out and talked to the media about her life behind bars or what they saw.
Yeah, and I know early on, Justin Lum put out something, let me know. So I would love to talk to you, see how things are going in there for her. And you see it every once in a while, but you don't know if it's a credible source or not.
Yeah, and that's why, like we said, we don't take every bit of rumor. I know the day that we first started this podcast, the audio is terrible because we didn't have our fancy equipment, but we were live. And so we were sort of reading social media as this unfolded. The day that they found the bodies is when we first started. And so we were live reading things on the internet, and there were a few things that turned out to be just something somebody made up in their head, and it picked up steam. One of the rumors was that Lori was the one that told them where the bodies were, and it's amazing how fast rumors can start and almost look credible. So we're just not saying that the letter that we went off of for Reddit, we don't know for sure, but if you look at the fact that we got the alert, she's not listed, and they say within a few days something big's happening, it could be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will see.
So we're going to touch a little bit. We found some information out on Melanie Pulowski's apartment that she lived in next to Lori. Mm-hmm. It hasn't, since she's moved out, it's not on the market. And we found that a little odd.
Yeah, it's not for sale or rent. But Alex and Lori's apartments, I believe, have already been rented out.
Yep.
So it's interesting because she made the deposit, I think, towards the end of October. Or this was taken off the market towards the end of October, which we discussed how that seems likely if she sent her first month's rent and a security deposit or whatever it is to hold that apartment.
Sure.
And so it doesn't mean that in October she was physically, that we know she wasn't physically there, I don't think, right?
No.
Yeah. So, but it kind of got our gears turning, and we were talking about what if this apartment is being kept off the market because they were able to determine a crime happened in her apartment.
And we don't know what that would be because the kids were already deceased then.
Right.
So
it's very strange. There could be a very valid reason, but I'm curious. It just seems a little odd that out of all three of the townhomes, it's hers that has never been relisted. I just think that's interesting. I don't know what could come of it, but if you remember too, we don't know either when she put the deposit down on it. It could be that they didn't take it off the market online for a few weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was just interesting that it's still open and not for rent or sale. So
right.
So I think the one of the other things it was big, like this came out the other day, was the satellite photos, and you're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I know when the day that the bodies were found, a lot of people were finding overhead shots from when Nate flew over, And later in the day, there were some drone photos that came out. And I admit I fell victim to thinking I saw something in that picture that might have been evidence. But we found some pictures that show the tent setup.
Yes.
And the one thing you always said was, I don't think that's anything. It's just too open.
Yes.
And so we found some pictures that show the appropriate crime scene where there are drapes down. You could see they're down in the area kind of deep where they found Tylee's remains. And so we just, because I know, especially for the families, it's disturbing to think that maybe there's stuff out there that shows your loved one or, but yeah, it doesn't seem like that was the case. I think your eyes can totally trick you.
Yeah. And they're so professional. They had closed off the road. So it was kind of like, they've done all this stuff to make sure nobody got close and can see anything. And, now because I don't think Nate stayed in the air, the whole time.
He didn't.
And
also you would notice too, it almost seemed like when the cameraman thought they may be doing something that could be revealing, he would pan out. He would, pan out.
Yeah.
And he would make that shot a lot wider and not be so close to it.
Yeah. And along with those photos, those satellite photos came out from September 9th.
Yeah. So there are some sleuths on the internet, and hats off to them. But your theory has always been that possibly, initially we were just convinced somebody talked. That somebody finally had broke and said, here's where they are. But then the more we started thinking about it and the little bit that came out, especially when the affidavit came out and we saw they were using the cell phone pings to put Alex in Lori's apartment at Chad's property, we found that there are websites where you can go and pull up satellite images from, I think it's years.
Yes.
And so you can put in a date range and so the sleuthing board that I saw this on, they had pulled up a picture from September the 9th, which is the day we know Tylee was buried on that property.
Yep.
And what did we see?
It showed disturbed ground in the areas where they were digging to locate the bodies. You could clearly see a difference in the soil. It
was a brown patch of land. And so the rest of the area was lighter, and it really stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yes.
This was not over by the pond. I don't think, as of right now, anybody has been able to find a satellite image from that day. So this is only about Tylee's remains, but it really gives you insight now between the cell phone pings and using those types of techniques to look at the area from days or months past, how they probably just did some good old-fashioned detective work and nailed Alex to this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy what they can do. And I never really would have thought that like we would have access to that where we could pick a date and look at a satellite image, but I've done it for other things now. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I know.
My house, everybody else's house or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I still can't figure out this trip that Chad took to Mesa.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because that's the weekend that we know Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend David was there, and we know that's the last time that JJ is seen, and we can't, it makes no sense.
Yeah, I almost wonder, I'm going to have to look at the dates, but it doesn't make sense that after JJ leaves, after that Chad leaves after in between the two deaths. It's like, what is he doing?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that trip was on the 19th, which was the weekend that
Melanie Gibb.
He flies to Mesa, has the conversation with the lady on the plane, saying that he was going to help somebody build something or redo something or whatever it was. So it just doesn't fit in.
I'd be really curious once all this comes out to see where they can put him in Mesa during this time.
Yeah, and his statement was he was helping a relative, so I would be interested to know who lives there. I mean, I'm sure the law enforcement, everybody already knows.
I'm going to have to look up and see. I don't know if the Jeep was back in Rexburg at this time from being... I know at one point we had heard it was abandoned in Arizona after the shooting.
Yeah.
And then, so is it a situation? I don't know. We'll have to look and see when those, the dates when the Jeep was impounded. I don't know.
And it'd be interesting, did he fly back or how did he get back?
Yeah, because we've never really heard anything about a flight home. But if he didn't talk to somebody, the only reason we knew that he was definitely on that flight, I think, is because the lady had come forward. Because she recognized him from his books.
Yes.
She had read a few.
Yeah.
How is that? I mean, I totally just picture this as like you got 10 friends that read your books. But apparently a lot of people did.
Yeah. It's evidently, I mean, he's written a lot.
Yeah.
So the next thing you were going to talk about was the letter from Lori's visiting teacher.
Yeah. So this is another little gem I found online, and this is somebody who knew Lori back when Tylee was around 10 years old. This is when they were her and Charles were married, and I'm just going to read out this to you. Again, this has been shared on various platforms other than where it originated, so if it were something I haven't seen elsewhere, I don't think I would read it, but it's been shared widely. So this person says she used to be Lori's visiting teacher. It says an assignment through our church to visit with and check on individuals, women, and families. And they were in the same ward when her and Charles were married. And this is around the time I think they were adopting JJ when this happened. And it was also centered around the time when Lori was fighting for custody with Joe Ryan for Tylee. And the woman goes on to say that she knew of some accusations that Lori had been making against Joe, and she didn't believe they were true. It just seemed like some sort of a way to maybe get him to where he didn't have custody. But we know now that Joe was awarded 50-50 custody, and she makes a statement in her letter that I thought was really, really interesting. And this was when she found out that Charles and Lori were moving to Hawaii. She thought it was odd because she had fought Joe for so long in court. And to get full custody, and when he got 50-50, this lady says, well, I mean, what if Tylee can't go with you? And she says, well, I can't continue to live my life around Tylee. She says, we're going to go, and if she ends up being able to come, then great.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. The letter was very specific, and I don't doubt somebody that comes along with kind of a personal story about her. We haven't really had any that have been just proven to be outright lies. She also said that she had a big concern that maybe Tylee was a victim of Munchausen syndrome, which is where the parent constantly tries to convince medical professionals that their kid is sick because they like the attention that is shown to them by friends and family and medical professionals. And she said this lady said that she had went personally to visit Tylee one time when she was in the hospital, and she was fine. She thought that was very odd.
Yeah, it's weird all the way around. But then she comments on Charles, right?
Yeah, and she just expresses her dismay at the situation. And she said Charles was the nicest guy, truly a Texas gentleman. And she said, I can't imagine why she would have left Charles for, dumpy Chad, but...
Yeah, that's just weird. I mean, but again, you're seeing testimonies, I don't want to say testimony, but...
just statements.
Just statements from people who are now connecting dots and saying, this happened, that happened, just different things like that.
And I think if you kind of look at Lori's past, it sort of fits in with her need to have attention poured on her or to seem relevant in whatever way. I think a lot of the reason she fell for Chad is because he made her feel important. He made her feel like she had this huge purpose, and we all know it's wackadoodle stuff, but the Munchausen syndrome definitely follows in that attention-seeking behavior pattern that seems to kind of, she's in beauty pageants, she's on Wheel of Fortune. It seems like she liked to be front and center.
Yep.
So we just thought that was a nice little insight from somebody who claims to know Lori, and gave us a little more that we haven't heard, which is if it's true, we didn't know Tylee was sort of in and out of doctors' facilities or hospitals for a while.
Yep.
And it makes you sad for Tylee, because if that's true, man, this kid just probably didn't have much normalcy at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to see you see a parent say, I can't continue to live my life around Tylee.
Yeah.
That's 6 years before she passes away.
And that's when she's a kid. I mean, teenager for me, I kind of see my oldest, who's 15, as a mini adult. But even at 15, I can never say, well, I'm moving, and if you can come, that's great.
Yeah. You almost see a pattern here with Lori turning on and off how she acts. We a lot of times call that a chameleon.
Yeah.
They can survive in any environment because they can adapt and change. And it seems you see her doing a lot of that in different areas. People saying she would never hurt kids. And
right.
Then you have somebody coming out, with this statement. It kind of shows there's different sides of her. It's
so true. If you think about her friend, I believe it was April Parker in Hawaii.
Yes.
So she had kind of a front row seat to her and Charles's marriage for a while. They were very close. And so Lori is in Hawaii to April, sort of projecting herself as perfect wife, perfect mother. Nothing's wrong when they live there. Of course, when Lori returns to gather her as one of the 144,000, April's kind of like, hold up. No, we're not doing this. But then you think about Lori at school, and the teachers would say, she's a great mom, and then you find out at church, she's very involved. We've seen some pictures this week where she was with some young girls that were part of the church, that she was helping their class. And then you see this side in court after she knows that her kids have been killed, where I was watching that hearing last night. It's very interesting now that all this has happened to rewatch these arraignments, how she walked past Kay and kind of stuck her chin up in the air and closed her eyes and had the weirdest grin on her face. So it is like chameleon.
Yes.
It's like, I'm the perfect mom, and then I'm going to totally be the monster that I am, that you think I am, by just, she smiled through the whole thing. So I think this woman's got some major issues. One of the things they do have access to in the jail is mental health facilities, and I'm curious to know if she's taken advantage of that.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. Probably not. She doesn't see anything's wrong with her. So,
and that's classic narcissist. It's everybody else. I mean, I'm sure right now she still thinks, well, the FBI's got it wrong because of this, and that's what people like her do. Is it's always everybody else's fault.
Yeah, and you think, okay, now she's been separated from Chad for a while. Is there going to be a breakdown when she realizes, oh no, what did I do?
I don't think it'll be anytime soon if it ever does happen. These people think they were on other planets together. They think they've been married before. They think that they're going to spend eternity sealed. So if her brain is truly in that mindset, I don't see it happening. I don't think they have anything to gain with the charges that we feel like are going to come. They're going to be in prison for life, maybe death. We don't know. It's it's an option in Idaho. So I don't know that them turning on each other is gonna do anything. But they can't talk.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the longest they've gone since they got together where they haven't talked. Who knows what that does to a person? And if she is getting some kind of mental health, is it helping her to see the light? But I don't know. I don't know that she sees the light. I think at the end of the day, I know she's got things wrong with her, but there's some evil that is just grounded in her.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing we saw this week was some reaching out of some friends that Tylee had in Arizona. Mm-hmm. It was cool to see friends of hers. And what did they say? Like the quote they said.
Well, it was a nice long post by a kid, a young man, very articulate, well-spoken. It was a heartfelt message. And he had a couple of pictures of Tylee. And one of those, they are kind of sitting on a couch outside. And he said that sometimes a group of them would go out into the desert and burn couches. I guess maybe that's what you do when you live in Arizona. And he said something that really melted my heart. He said she had a home out here. And I think he meant with that group of friends for whatever time they hung out, when they went out in the desert, the picture of her, and I didn't share it on our Twitter because it was shared online, but that's a young man's private Twitter or Instagram from what I understand. But it was a sweet picture, and you see a side of Tylee that I think, apart from any picture with her family, we've seen the pictures with her friend from Arizona, the dark-headed girl, who's done a few interviews. But you see kind of that same carefree teenager face in this picture that you don't see in any picture with that we've seen with her mom or whatever. So I think it's nice to know that she had probably these really brief moments of being normal in what I can only assume was just a constant chaotic life.
Yep, exactly.
I just like knowing that she did have a crew that she was able to go just be a kid with.
Yeah. So now we're going to jump into some dates with some separations and marriages, because this is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and we've always said that for the most part, cults rely heavily on arranged marriages to reach whatever goal they're trying to seek. I still think Chad had some kind of polygamy thing in his mind. But the other thing we were thinking about with the quick marriages that happened, so you go into the dates.
So just looking at the separations, in February of 2019, Charles files for divorce from Lori. And we know that she came back and then left again. But that was in February. April, Natalie Pulowski and Ian separate. May, Brendan Gibb from Melanie Gibb. And July, Brandon from Melanie Pulowski. Well, she's Pulowski now, but she was Bordeaux then. So those are just interesting. That's just like February, April, May, July.
Yeah, they were just kind of one after the other. And then the marriages, we know Melanie Gibb, as far as we know, she's not married to David Warwick, who she's with now.
Yep. Honestly, we don't know that. But so November 5th, Lori and Chad marry in Hawaii. November 29th, Alex and Zelema marry in Vegas. And then the following day, November 30th, Melanie and Ian marry in Vegas. And we know that Alex and Zelema were witnesses to their marriage. So
yeah, because we've seen pictures.
Yes.
I think initially she tried to play it off at some point in the past that maybe Alex and them weren't there. I don't know. I just kind of remember maybe she sort of lied a little bit. I'll have to double check. But I was thinking about this. I wonder if Ian and Melanie and Alex and Zulema, do you think there's a possibility? Because you have to consider when they got married at the end of November, they had already performed the welfare check on the kids. Mm-hmm. And I believe, was it at this time that the Rexburg police did the search warrant for Lori and Melanie's property?
Yeah, that was, they went in for the welfare check on November 26th and then went back the next day. And that's, I call it rats jumping ship, a sinking ship. And they all fled and went their own ways. And we know that contact was made, don't talk to the police, blah, 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 blah. So...
Right. So I was kind of wondering, if we put the whole cult theory aside that these are arranged marriages, I wonder, since the welfare check had taken place, and Alex is still alive at this point. He died maybe a couple of weeks later. He died on the 12th.
2 weeks. He died 2 weeks later.
The 11th was when they exhumed Tammy. He dies on the 12th. Not a coincidence. Mm-hmm. So much stinks about that, but whatever. I wonder if they did not read Idaho law very carefully. If they had, they would have found that when it comes to missing kids, spouses don't have privilege of testifying against their spouse. Do you think there's a chance these marriages were maybe a way to avoid having to testify against each other if this got ugly?
Possibly it could be. We know they're not the smartest criminals, so, and I'm not saying all those people are criminals, but we know that they've made other, wrong decisions with carrying your phone around and et cetera, et cetera. But it's a possibility.
It reminds me of that Brady Bunch episode where they go in the caves and they leave a popcorn trail so that they can find their way out. It's kind of like these guys did that with their phones.
Yeah.
It sounds like we are probably going to know most of this story by the time the digital stuff comes out. I don't see them getting to killing the kids and then being careful after. I think they just didn't think.
Yeah. And in talking about, these marriages, we talked about survivor benefits. So Lori would have been given Charles's survivor benefits when he passed away. Mm-hmm. So she would have been receiving money up until that time. And once you remarry, you don't collect those. So it's interesting to know, to see.
She would have to file, I think, paperwork to stop those benefits. And so you're looking at a few months. So November to February, that would have been the time that if she got those.
Well, he passed away in July.
Right.
So she would have had from July till then. But then you get into, okay, she was arrested in Hawaii. Did she have time? She was married, she married on November 5th and then came back and, whatever else. And then eventually went back. So I don't know. Did she have time to do that?
Oh, well, did she have time? Did she even want to?
Yeah.
I mean, she thinks the world's ending July 22nd. So if you've already killed your kids and your new husband's wife and your brother shot your husband, I don't know that Social Security fraud would frighten her.
Like there's so many charges in this case.
There's so many. And going way back to the beginning of the podcast, I think, the police officer that we spoke, the investigator we spoke to, said it seems like maybe is she going to get federal charges? Because that would definitely require a change of facility.
Yeah.
So that'll be something to watch. I mean, is it going to be that right now, they've said today, they made an announcement that the coroner has sent this case out for further testing.
Yes.
Now, you talked to somebody who is a past coroner today.
Yeah, a former coroner, assistant coroner. And we just asked him, what does this, because we know that Ada County ordered additional testing outside and ancillary, which when we spoke to him, he said it normally means that it's an independent testing, not associated with law enforcement and not partial. So they're just getting an outside, agency or whatever to perform some testing to make sure everything, is lining up. The ancillary normally means that they're making sure the findings are the same. So whatever they found, they're going to test it again and make sure the findings are the same. Yeah. So that was interesting to me that, possibly, they found something, hoping they found something.
And could it be a situation where we watched a medical examiner on Court TV the other day, and he said he couldn't fathom any test that hadn't been done at this point. In other words, he said that they have her autopsy back.
Yeah.
So it's curious, are they maybe comparing the kids' toxicology reports to hers if they found something?
Yeah. And again, we're looking at it. They are going through this with a fine-tooth comb. They're keeping everything by the book. They're just making sure everything is taken care of because they want to see justice done for these kids and these people. That everybody that suffered, they, I know police officers, and I know they are wanting for the families to get justice.
Yeah, and if they were to bring federal charges, they're not going anywhere. These guys are not getting out. So I would rather them take all the time they need and wrap this up in a nice little package and put a little bow on top so that when it's time to charge them, we get a lot of answers.
Exactly.
And the family, I'm sure, needs their time for this to die down in the media so they can process everything that's happened over these months and especially over the last 2 weeks. So I would say if she's going to get charges, I wouldn't be surprised if it is something relating to a federal charge.
Yeah. The last thing we wanted to talk about was jury selection. And we know everybody's kind of been making comments and, thinking about all this. And you look at it and you think, okay, is there anybody in that little small town that hasn't heard what's going on?
Oh, no. Everybody knows.
Yeah. And so now you think, okay, how far out are they going to have to go to find people that can sit on a jury and not be, swayed either way?
Yeah. I've seen some things and I've seen some opinions where some people think this is headed to a federal case. I don't know. I mean, one example was that just with this crossing the state lines, there's crimes that have been committed over different states. So I don't know if that could make it a federal case. That was sort of the indication I got. You have the Social Security fraud. We know they're going to pop her with everything.
Yeah, it's going to be like Santa's list. Like when you open it, it's just going to be a scroll. Like
Right, it's just going to keep rolling across the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll take that poor judge, 8 hours to read the charges.
Yeah,
when this thing goes to trial. But it is interesting.
Yeah, it's just each day we look and we find a little bit more information, and a little bit more people are talking and coming out and making comments. So it's going to be interesting.
Now, we found a letter it's been out there for a while, and I thought this was very interesting. This was posted on November 19th of 2019, so this is after the kids and Tammy had died, but before the welfare check. About a week before the welfare check.
Yeah, and this goes along with Ian's quote, his notes that he was making, supposedly for the attorneys for Melanie.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. See, we can't see each other. She's got her big computer in her face because we get distracted by each other. We're like 3-year-olds. So, sorry, Fruit Loop, I confused you. The one I'm talking about is the post from somebody that it's very clear she knew the Daybell family.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going down the other.
See, this is how we normally roll.
Yeah.
Half the time we're just confused with each other. So
you go ahead and discuss yours, and we'll discuss the other one.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right.
All right. So there was a post that was made November 19th, and it says, "A month ago, a close friend unexpectedly passed away, young and healthy with a family. They buried that person so quick as to not do an autopsy and buried her hours from where she was living. The husband made his kids go through her clothes within days of her passing, and he had almost every detail planned for the funeral within an hour of finding her body. He moved out of his house a few days later and took off to Hawaii. Well, he just got back and has remarried 3 weeks after she died. He said he had known her for a year." And this person's like, "What?" "An investigation has been opened, and many of us have felt something has been off, but this just blew it out of the water. How do we help the children as they've just lost their mother and their dad just showed up with a new wife unexpectedly? They are struggling." So that was the post that we found that had been posted November 19th.
Yeah, that's...
Kind of sounds like the Daybells.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't name them, but it's the story.
And it's before this made any news, so I tend to think it's probably credible.
Yep.
And that gives a little bit of insight because they're talking about making the kids go through their mom's clothes within a matter of days. It's like he couldn't get her out of that family fast enough.
Yeah.
So, again, until law enforcement gives us a reason, we're not going to bash the kids on the show. I feel very sorry for these kids. But that's a lot within a few weeks. Your mom dies, your dad leaves, he comes back, he's married, you've had to pack your mom's clothes up, and all the while, unbeknownst to them, the kids are in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, if people wonder why these kids act strange, I think we have answers.
Yeah, they've been through a lot.
And we don't know how they were raised, but I can't imagine.
Yeah, they've been through a lot. It seemed that their mom was their backbone and just loved by everybody. So they've been through a lot of things in this last 8 months now?
Yeah, probably longer if you want to go back to the whole story of their childhood, which we don't know, but eventually all that stuff comes out.
Yeah.
People start talking that knew them, and I'm sure we'll get a lot more clarification. But I have to say right now, at least, it seems like friends of Tammy's aren't really saying much. We've had a few that have spoke out that have expressed how she was different or things like that. But I think eventually, maybe once all this dies down a bit, you'll start to get people creeping out into the media that want to talk.
Yeah. So the last letter we were going to talk about, which is when I tried to jump in a while ago.
Well, if I hadn't got off our little number list here.
That's right.
Sorry.
Was the letter that Natalie Pulowski wrote. And there's some... Oh, man. I mean, it goes along with the information that Ian put on the computer and she found or whatever. But the stuff in that letter was crazy.
It's disturbing. And to make matters worse, Ian and Melanie get married, the 30th? Are they the 30th? Yeah, something like 29th to 30th.
30th,
And this was written on December 4th, late at night. And I'm going to go through this letter and we're going to pick it apart because it is interesting. Natalie is talking about how on their wedding night, on Ian and Melanie's wedding night, she finally came out with the whole cult thing and told Brandon what this cult, I guess, was sort of about. She didn't say it was a cult, and that's in parentheses here. And he said he was so confused, which any sane person would be super confused. It sounds like something you would binge on Netflix as opposed to real life, as far as the beliefs go, at least. And she told him that in March, a demon had possessed his ex-wife's body, which is Natalie, and that her spirit came to her in a vision and told her that. She was interrogated. It says here that I guess on December the 3rd, the day before this was written, that she had been interrogated by the police for 5 hours on the day before. And then she told Ian that 2 of the police officers were possessed with the spirit of 2 of the original 12 disciples of Cain.
Yeah, the information in this letter is not something that somebody would make up.
No, I mean...
Like, we've heard all of these things before. You know what I mean?
Right, and it fits into what we know about the dark and the light and the zombie stuff. So she goes on to say she told him that his children... their spirits were full of light, but that can change basically at any moment. And months ago, we heard it come out where Melanie said children are full of light, but at any moment they can go dark. So that really kind of ties into what we had heard before, her opinions on that. And she goes on to say that Melanie has isolated Ian pretty badly from his family, and she makes him listen to weird podcasts. I wonder who was doing those podcasts.
Yeah, I think we know.
Yeah, and so she said that he had a pit in his stomach, and she told him that there were light and dark weapons and had bad feelings. The bad feelings you have are the dark weapons. And she also said that in a past life, she was the niece of Jesus.
Yeah, this is just so out there. I mean, it's...
Did she go around telling people, well, you know, my Uncle Jesus, he turned water into wine? I mean, or is this... I mean... I can't even begin to imagine being convinced that I was the niece of Jesus. I would walk myself to a mental hospital.
Yeah.
That is not normal. So she acknowledges that her ex is not the best person in the world. But she says, I am legitimately scared for my own life, my kid's life, and my ex's. She also said that she had started to hear something about a missing persons case that Melanie may be involved in. And she goes on and she sounds very desperate. I don't know what to do. I'm planning on going to the police for some help. But she was afraid Melanie might come after her if she found this out.
Yeah, all this is so crazy. Like, I would, if I was her, I would be the same way. I would feel like, you know, that you just couldn't trust anybody and you would be afraid for your life.
Right. And then she goes on to say that Ian was so scared that he asked his wife to take the kids away on his weekend because he didn't want him around her. And she said this is something he has never done.
Yeah. It just makes no sense. And then how, you know, then he comes out and goes, oh, I was wrong.
Right, yeah. Just all of a sudden, it's just media hoopla.
Yeah, it's my fault because I stirred up all this stuff and it's my fault that this is turned into what it is.
Right. But Natalie goes on to say that Melanie did not want her to know her last name, I guess Boudreaux, because she was afraid that Natalie would call Brandon and he would say, and I quote, she tried to kill him and she's in a cult. So she's already sort of trying to change Ian's perspective. Like, oh, yeah, if she calls, he's going to say that I tried to kill him and I'm in a cult and it's all baloney and I'm not and everything's fine. It's just that manipulation that this dude married into crazy and found out on the wedding night. If he's not involved in the cult, I'm not convinced that he's not associated with these people long before the 10 days that they supposedly met.
Yeah, it's...
But he asked her to look up the names Alex Cox and Chad Daybell.
Yeah, it's...
So this is December 4th. So this is only a few days after the welfare check. Only maybe 4 or 5 days after the wedding from Melanie and Ian. And so it's very telling to me if he's reached out to her within, 4 days of being married, that he's terrified. Don't give me the kids. Why did he switch sides?
Yeah, it's just like a switch was turned on and off, and it just makes no sense. I
just wonder if he was threatened somehow, because you have to remember at this point, Lori and Chad both in December are free.
Yeah.
And I'll have to go back and see kind of when he changed his tune. Was it after Lori was incarcerated? Because Chad, as we know, has only been in jail 2 weeks. So a lot of people probably haven't spoke up because he's still out there, and at this point, everybody knows he's probably responsible for orchestrating a lot of this.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just thought that was interesting. It really shows the fear that Ian obviously had very soon after the marriage days, to where he called his ex-wife, who he's probably not on the best terms with, and was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Watch his face during all those interviews. If you go back and look at it, watch his face. He just looks miserable. Mm-hmm. And I know he's on national TV or whatever. And
he's knocked up crazy because she's pregnant. So he's kind of stuck in this in that way.
Yeah.
I bet at this point he's probably hoping she gets arrested and he can just take the baby and forget this all happened if he's not involved in any other way.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
So Julie Rowe, I try not to make fun of people because I'm not about that. But Julie Rowe makes it really hard. I'm just going to say
I don't even watch anything she does.
Oh, my gosh.
So
last night I'm watching a Court TV special on this. They upload a lot of their Law and Crime and Court TVs. Pretty much the only two places I watch news, or East Idaho and Fox 10. But as far as like network shows, and she's talking about Tammy Daybell's death. And as you know, she was friends with Chad and Tammy and very close with Emma Daybell. In fact, Emma Daybell had wrote a blog post that we recently found defending Julie Rowe. I think at the time, maybe some people in this, was it AVOW website, or I don't know who it was to, but she was defending Julie Rowe as sort of a holy person who's getting a bad rap. But so Julie's talking about Tammy Daybell's death, and they're sort of going through the theories of how he may have killed her. And so she goes through the poison stuff, and she says, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but it makes sense. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. She thinks that there's a very good possibility that Chad was able to kill Tammy with his mind.
Yeah, that's...
Okay. Not only did I choke on my water from laughing, and I don't mean to make fun of anybody, but I mean, come on. We laugh about people. I mean, not in a making fun way, but if we hear something that just sounds crazy, we'll look at each other and die laughing or something. But, oh my goodness, she was telling this with such conviction and such facts that it was a sword, I believe, that she mentioned, which Melanie did in that, or what Natalie had put in the letter that Melanie had said about the evil is the sword. But she just thinks that Chad could have conjured up the willpower to stop her heart without intervening physically. And, oh boy.
Yeah, I can't even comment.
I need to look and see if she's on the witness list for the prosecution, or did they just leave that hot mess to the side?
No, I don't think she is.
I mean, yeah, oh boy. Yep. She needs help. I'm not trying to be mean, but she's gone.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's sad. I just think it's sad when somebody can't think straight, and a lot of times people can't help it, but these are just crazy stuff. I mean, she's just like, this is going to sound weird.
Yeah.
And when she was done, I was like, well, that put it mildly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that is all we have today.
Yeah, we just wanted to share our theories and see what's going on. I think maybe, if that poster's right, maybe we'll be doing a bigger podcast here soon. We'll be going on vacation this weekend, but I think we're going to be able to do it on location. Is that right?
Yeah, we should be okay. Mm-hmm.
So if anything big happens, we will hop on and talk about it. And if anything is said about the July 1st hearing for Melanie Pulaski, we definitely want to cover that. It just depends on if they allow the public in that courtroom. I don't know, with this case being in the national media attention, I don't know if they can close a courtroom only to family and lawyers and stuff, but we'll stay on top of that for you guys. And if we don't hear from you guys in a few days, be safe. Have a good holiday week next week. It's Independence Day, and we will keep you updated as things keep coming in.
All right.
All right. You guys have a great night.